It's now 6:30, so we'll get started. This is going to fall over. Hold on a minute. Okay, so we're going to get started. Welcome to everyone that's here. The town of West Bridgewater is excited to host a candidates night at the middle senior high school. Thank you all to all the candidates for taking time to run and to be here tonight. A citizen having a right to choose their leaders through elections is one of the most sacred values. Thank you to Community Access Media, in particular Ben Smith, for providing coverage of this event so that all residents will have the opportunity to view tonight's event. Thank you to the school department for allowing us to use this facility tonight. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen's office, in particular Town Administrator David Gagney, Assistant Town Administrator HR Director Linda Torres, Executive Assistant Christine Eaton, and for coordinating the schedule of events and planning the night. Tonight's candidates for the non-competitive races will be given an opportunity of 2 minutes to present themselves to you, the voters, and explain why they're running. There will be no questions for these candidates as they are running unopposed. After these candidates speak, we will have a 30-minute debate for the only contested race school committee. As event facilitator, I will moderate the event. All questions will be asked through me. No direct questioning to the candidates will be allowed. Questions have been submitted previously to the town clerk's office. The previously submitted questions have not been shared with anyone. The candidates will get 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. The candidate will get 2 minutes to respond to questions. When there's 1 minute left, the town administrator, David Gagney, will hold up a green card informing the candidate. When the time has elapsed, the town administrator will hold up a red card, and I will ask the candidate to stop talking at that time. We are not going to be taking any questions from the floor tonight because we've gotten quite a number of questions that have come to my office ahead of time. And I feel that we might not even get through those questions. So I want to apologize up front if I don't get to your question. I tried to make sure I got to questions for everyone that has submitted. I've also combined some questions because I felt they were the same topic. So your question might not come out exactly as you asked it, but I'm hoping that I got the gist of your question. With that being said, I'm going to start with the non-contested races. First, I would like to have Michael Perez, candidate for re-election for the Board of Selectmen, come up and speak.
Thank you, Annie. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the residents of West Bridgewater for electing me for the Board of Selectmen. Your trust and support meant the world to me, and I'm truly honored to serve our community. To all of the candidates who ran in this election, I commend you. I know firsthand how challenging it is to put yourself out there and campaign. Your dedication to our town is admirable, and I thank you for your efforts. I also want to take a moment to recognize the incredible employees of our town. Every day I'm more and more impressed by all the hard work and dedication and professionalism that you bring to our community. Thank you for everything you do to make West Bridgewater such a great place to live. On October 24, 2023, I had the privilege and honor to be sworn in as a member of the West Bridgewater Board of Selectmen. In that short time since, I have learned so much about our town, its people, and the challenges we face. I strive to make a fair and just decisions and work tirelessly to address concerns brought to my attention by residents, always aiming to provide prompt and thoughtful responses. As I look ahead, I am excited about the future of West Bridgewater, and I am eager to continue serving this wonderful community. I would be honored to be re-elected to the Board of Selectmen for an additional 3 years, and I will continue to work hard for the betterment of our town. Thank you for your support, and I look forward for the opportunity. Thank you.
We also have on the ballot Linda Simpson, candidate for re-election to the Board of Health, but it looks like Linda was not able to make it tonight. We also have Marcus Bornstein, who is running unopposed for Planning Board. and he was not able to make it tonight. We do have one of our library trustees, Christopher Lawrence, who's running for a candidate for re-election. If you'd like to come up and speak.
Thank you. My name is Chris Lawrence, and I'm seeking re-election for my seat on the West Bridgewater Library Board of Trustees. Libraries provide vital resources to the community, and they need our support more than ever. Libraries are more than just buildings filled with books. They are essential for literacy, discovery, and personal growth, ensuring a better present and better future. As the Friends of the Library slogan says, if you haven't been to the library lately, you haven't been to the library. Former library director Ellen Snowenbos asked me if I would be interested in serving on the Board of Trustees, and she's somebody that you could not say no to. Before being appointed to the Board of Trustees, in addition to being a regular patron, I served on the Strategic Planning Committee as well as the Exploratory Technology Group. I also volunteered teaching a class on digital imaging and preserving family photographs. I bring with me 15 years of experience in the telecom and technology industries with emphasis on project management in dealing with clients in retail, healthcare, and government sectors. This gives me a keen perspective on the challenges the library will face in an ever-changing technological landscape. I'm seeking re-election as I want to ensure the West Bridgewater Public Library continues to serve the community effectively. I'm here tonight to ask you for your vote. There are 2 open seats for the Board of Trustees, and on behalf of the other candidate and myself, we sincerely appreciate your vote. And remember, when you vote, you're exercising your political authority. Do your part. Thank you.
Also running for re-election for library trustee is Christine Roberts, and she is not here as well. Constable, we have 2 candidates running, new candidates. First one is Christopher Badukas, and he is not here tonight. But we do have Brian A. O'Connell III, if you'd like to come up. So this is also a 2-seat race.
Thank you, everybody. I'm very excited for the opportunity. Just like the last speaker, I was called up by a good friend of mine, Mike, who asked me to fill the position after some deep thought, and again, somebody you cannot say no to. I decided that I'd be a good fit. A little bit about me, I served in the Air Force as a security forces member. I did that for 4 years, did general base security, allowing people in and out of the base, patrolmen responding to, general traffic stops, domestic violence situations, general disputes, stuff like that. I also worked at Good Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton as a security officer. That taught me a lot more about life experiences and dealing with something like this than the military ever would have. A lot of hands-on experience, de-escalating people, situations, and just general communication skills. So I'm fairly new to the community, but very excited and honored to be a part of and give back to the community a little bit more. Obviously running unopposed, but I do very much appreciate your support. Hopefully I can earn your vote when the time does come next month to vote, and just very excited and honored to have the privilege to be here. So thank you.
And then the last candidate is a candidate for re-election for Housing Authority, John Cruz, and I don't see him here either. So before we move on to the debate, I guess I forgot something very important to say here. The annual town election is Saturday, April 12th at the Spring Street School. Polls are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. There is no vote by mail or early voting in person option for this election. You can vote absentee or by mail or in person for the following reasons. A registered voter who will be unable to vote at the polls on election day due to the absence from the voter's city or town during polling hours, a disability, or religious beliefs. Please contact me, the town clerk, for more information on how to request an application. The deadline to apply for an absentee ballot application is Monday, April 7th by 5 p.m. That's by mail. and the deadline to vote absentee in person is Friday, April 11th by noon. All ballots must be returned by 5 p.m. on April 12th in order to be counted. All right, let's get started. So the candidates for school committee have already drawn numbers as to who will speak first, second, and third. So I'm going to call them up to take their seats. We have David Schmier, candidate for re-election. We have John Waller, and we have Perry Peregrine. She likes to go by Perry. Weesh. I'm sorry. I'll learn it. All right, so David got number one, so he's going to start with his 2-minute opening remarks.
Well, I am David Schmier. I'm running for re-election to the school committee. So I've been on the committee for 3 years, and in that time I've also been on the school building committee, the co-chair of the Special Education Parents Advisory Council, and a YAA coach for 2 of my kids. In the time that I've been on the committee, we've had a few large increases to the school budget, and those really were necessary because of the changing characteristics of our town. We've had big increases in English language learners in our town. We've also had some increased needs in special education. It was a little bit uncomfortable to try and ask for a large increase because we don't want to make anybody's taxes go up, but it really was necessary. And the state recognized that increase in our needs as well, because in the year that we had a almost 8% increase in our school budget, our Chapter 70 funding went up so much that it was a net negative $17,000 increase to the cost to the town. Now, that's not a change that we can expect every year. So we have been decreasing our school budget increases in the subsequent years. And I was able to do that by arranging meetings with Mr. Gagne and Finance Committee members and Board of Selectmen members. After that first year, we arranged some training around school budgets and the finance of schools that was put on by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. In our current year, we were aiming for an increase of approximately 3%, but because of the increased interest in the agricultural schools, which we do not have in our district, so we have to pay an out-of-district tuition for, and some large increases in the tuition for some of the private special education schools, that increase actually went up to about 5.8%. But in future years, we aim to bring that increase down to a more manageable level.
Thank you, David. Next, we have John, JP, he goes by.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is John Waller, and I'm here to ask for your vote for school committee. I would say the first thing anyone here should know about me is no one calls me John, except my mother, and now I will be on the ballot as John. Everyone here in town calls me JP. I've lived in town for 14 years now. I have 2 sons in the school district. I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader. A little bit about me. I've been heavily involved in the WBYAA for the last 6 years or so. I started on the coaching side, which is still one of my favorite things to do. And now I'm currently in my 2nd year as the treasurer and one of the 4 officers for that organization. Before my time with the YAA, I served on the town's finance committee from 2015 until 2017, so I have a strong familiarity with how municipal budgets work and the process we go through here in town. I believe I will have ample time to talk about my thoughts and ideas for the school during the questions portion of this debate, so I would like to use the remaining portion of my time to say that one of my favorite things about living in a small town like West Bridgewater is the power that the voters have over who we elect to positions like this. With such a small population, every vote truly does matter. And it does disappoint me a little bit that we have so many unopposed races this year especially. So with that being said, I really want to thank the 3 great candidates we have up here today. Regardless of how this vote goes, I know all 3 of us donate or volunteer countless hours of our time for the benefit of the kids and the town. So personally, I just want to thank Perry and Dave for everything you guys have done, and I appreciate it as a parent in town. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Now we have Perry.
Hi, I'm Perry Weech, Peregrine legally. I am running for school committee with these two. I've lived in town for 14 years. I'm married 14 years. We have 5 children. I have a kindergartner at Spring Street, a 2nd grader at Roselle. I have a 4th and 6th graders at Howard, and I have a 7th grader here. I've seen a lot of what's going on around here. I joined the PTO when my oldest started kindergarten, and I've been a member there since. I'm currently the treasurer of the PTO in my 6th year, and I'm also the treasurer at the youth football organization and in my 3rd year there. I'm mostly running because this is something I've always thought about doing, and I think that we have a lot of changes on the horizon here with increase in population, changes to laws and funding, and I think we need some creative fiscal opportunities going forward. So that's kind of where I am, but I appreciate, as JP said, both Dave and JP, and I don't think you can actually go wrong with any combination of us, but vote for me.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first question. This is for all 3 of you. With the uncertainty surrounding the federal funding for education and the potential budget shortfalls, how would you, as a member of the school committee, approach preparing the FY26 budget to ensure financial stability while maintaining the quality of education for students? What would be your top priorities for funding, and how will you advocate them, and what would you protect, and what would you consider to reduce? Start with you, David.
All right. So the budget that we do have this year really is about as tight as it could be. So funding cuts of that nature would be really difficult to absorb. Right off the top, we have certain expenses that we cannot reduce. So out-of-district tuition for special education placements cannot be changed. The agricultural school tuitions that I mentioned must be paid first. We cannot reduce those. If we start cutting from what we have in the budget now, we would have to reduce specials from full-time to part-time. That's art, gym, the extra classes. In order to bring the budget down any further, you actually would have to reduce the number of teaching staff that we have, and that would be extremely painful. That would increase class sizes. It would have a detrimental effect on education, and it's not something that we would want to do. But if we're talking about the kind of funding cuts that could come our way, we would have to make some difficult decisions.
JP?
Yeah, I would say it's really hard to answer that question without knowing, I guess, what kind of cuts we might be looking at. But to Dave's point, if we are looking at some, extreme cuts, I think, the last thing that personally I would like to see cut in any manner is the funding for teachers. I think, obviously that's, to me, that would be the #1 priority in our budget. Without, having a really a deep dive look at the budget, I would like to see if there's any redundancies we could look into, or if there are administrative things that over the years that we haven't improved with technology. I remember when I was on the finance committee, that was a big thing, is we often had years where we would request funding for one specific thing and then they never fell off the budget. So that's something that, like, if I am elected, that is something I want to just look into. I don't have specific examples of that if that's happening, but those are the areas that when I look at a budget, I try to focus on.
Perry?
Again, I echo JP. I haven't done an in-depth dive onto it. My priority, I think, would be looking into what we are spending money on to get funding, and I'm sure there are programs that we are utilizing because doing so gives us an X amount of dollars funding-wise from the state or federal, whatever it is. I'd want to make sure that we aren't spending money to get a donation from the state for something and it ends up costing us money in the long run. I'd prioritize staffing. We need staff, and that is the only thing at this point that can help some of our problems. But if we're looking at extreme, drastic cuts, I think that unfortunately specialists, we have to come up with a solution to keep them. We have to do what we can to make sure that these kids are getting the arts and physical education when we can. But again, I'd focus on, are we losing money to gain money somewhere?
Thank you. The next question is for JP and Perry. Have you attended any school committee meetings in the past? If so, what did you learn from those experiences? Based on your understanding, how would you define the role of school committee member, and what do you see as the most important responsibility? We'll start with JP.
All right, I might need you to chunk that up for me in a minute because there's a lot
Okay,
of questions
that's
there.
fine.
But I would say the first thing is I have never in person attended a school committee meeting. I did go to one meeting regarding the building of the new school possibilities of different options they were throwing out. To me, I think one of the things was, what is the purpose of the school committee, or what is their role? I would say it's a twofold approach from my point of view. The first is a budgetary aspect, putting together a fiscal yearly operating budget to present to the finance committee and the selectmen and the voters of the town. And the second one to me is, having an insight into school policies. I know that when certain things want to be changed or looked at, the school committee gets involved in reviewing those policies and making sure everything in our handbooks and such is still the way we want it written. So I think to me, those are the two main jobs of the school committee. Did I miss anything else in the question?
Yeah, with the most important responsibilities. I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. Perry?
Would you mind reading it again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It says, have you attended any school committee meetings in the past year? If so, what did you learn from those experiences? Based on your understanding, how would you define the role of a school committee member, and what do you see as its most important responsibilities?
I have attended a meeting, just one. It was interesting. I was not able to stay for the entire meeting. I would say the most important is the budget, and that's the priority at this point, at least for the town's sake. We want to make sure that we're not raising it every year more than necessary. I think we also need to make sure policies, procedures are all kept in line with up-to-date. The world, it's changing. We need to make sure that everything is in place to protect everybody that we can, and make sure that these are being rewritten and kept up as needed.
All right, this one is for David. Do you really think that the town can afford $150 million to $200 million for a new school?
Well, it's a lot of money. It sounds like a lot. And the state reimbursement rate for the new school building right now is expected to be at about 55%. So there are certain categories of spending on a new school which are not reimbursed in full, but those would be like district offices, an extra large gym. There's a 6,000 square foot gym which actually is reimbursed at that rate. And I think if we don't build this new school now, we're going to continue to face expenditures of trying to repair the HVAC facilities, repair roofs. Our buildings are really old and out of date. They were built in the 1950s and 60s, and it really is time to build a new school. We're running out of space in our schools now. The classrooms have been prioritized so that we are now putting our specials on a cart. So your art class moves to each classroom on a cart. There is no dedicated space for it. There is no dedicated library. So we are currently out of room in our schools, and it really is critical that we build a new building. Our population is expected to grow pretty significantly in the near future. Fortunately, we have not seen as many of the new homes put up as quickly and filled as quickly as we were afraid that they may be. So we haven't yet faced the very severe crunch in population that would push our class sizes over 25 kids per classroom to 30 or 35 kids a classroom. We really don't want to be in that position and trying to deal with aging infrastructure at that time.
Okay, thank you. This one is for all three candidates. I have two young children. One is at the Spring Street School, the other is at the Roselle. It sounds like we're going to build a new school at Roselle and not Howard. I do not feel safe, especially in the winter when it's dark early, for my children to be tucked away in a wooded lot when school's going on. Would you support spending more money to make sure it's at Howard so that I feel safer as a parent? We'll start with Perry.
I don't. I trust that the school committee or the building committee has explored all options and is looking at this with the most thoughtful process they can in regards to safety and finances. And if the building committee is recommending one over the other, I have to believe that there's a reason for it, and I trust in that committee.
JP?
Yeah, I think I would probably have the same take. I don't know enough about if there have been any safety concerns at the Roselle. I certainly haven't heard of any. Both of my kids went there, and I always felt fine with it. I also think that, in general, this is a very safe town to be in. I think our police do a great job, and our school resource officers. So, to me, I'm not going to spend extra money to put a school at Howard over Roselle unless there was some data or incidents that could prove that it's a safer area or an unsafe area.
David?
So the safety of the students is something that we are constantly thinking about and planning around. We do have security camera upgrades that are proposed for the capital budget. So we have cameras now. We plan to update those cameras. We have a school resource officer who is dedicated to protecting our children, ensuring the safety of our buildings. And in choosing the Roselle site, the school building committee did evaluate the Howard and several other properties around town. The Roselle and the Howard were buildable sites, but if we want to build a school that can fit pre-K through 4 or pre-K through 6, which are the two configurations we're currently considering, the Howard site really would not fit that building. We would be required to do some upgrades to the water treatment and the town septic system. We would have to change it into a water treatment plant. You would have to build the building on top of where the current septic system is, and it's really not workable in any kind of phase. So the Howard site was eliminated for that reason. There really just isn't space to put the new building there. The Roselle site does have enough buildable land that we can put a pre-K through 4 or pre-K through 6 building there. It would require some work for septic, and if we go through pre-K through 6, we could possibly have to build a water treatment plant on site. There actually will be more about this topic at the April 1st meeting for the school building committee, so I don't think we really need to go over it too much more here, but that has been considered, and it really is the best buildable site for the new school.
Thank you. This one is just for David. I'm a senior citizen. My kids went through the school system. I have lived here for over 30 years. I see every year at town meeting the school keeps asking for bigger and bigger budgets. The last 3 years it was up to 8%, then 7%, and now another 6%. That's over 21%. My Social Security checks have not gone up that much. When do you start getting serious about budget controls and stop spending so much money?
I really hear that. The first year asking for that large increase was difficult, but it was necessary. In order to try and control that cost, I reached out to Mr. Gagne, the Finance Committee, and the Selectmen, and asked them if we could have meetings to regularly speak with them about the needs of our school district versus the needs of every other budget in town. We really have been doing the best that we can to bring that cost down, because there are increasing needs. We do need to pay for some additional costs for the school district, but I do recognize that it's not something that we can continue indefinitely. So this year, we were bringing our budget down to about a 3% increase over last year's, but some unforeseen circumstances. We went from having about 5 kids going to Aggie to 10 new kids applying. So that's 15 kids instead of 5, and that's a cost that we have to pay off the top before we consider any other budget items. There are a lot of increasing costs for everyone everywhere, and we do understand that, and we do not want to continue to have large increases. I believe that we are bringing that under control now.
Okay, thank you. This is for everyone. Overcrowding in schools is a growing concern, impacting both student learning and teachers' effectiveness. Given the budget constraints, what specific or cost-effective strategies would you implement to address this issue without compromising educational quality and ensure students will receive a well-rounded education that includes not just STEM, but also the arts and humanities and life skills? And what role do you believe that the school committee plays in setting these policies around class sizes? And we're going to start with JP.
Okay. I'll answer the second part first. I think, the school committee plays an instrumental role in having decisions about class sizes and how we make the funding work there. As far as the specific examples of ways we can make that work, obviously that's a really hard question. I think, I touched on this before. My plan, personally, to be, if I was elected, is to really do a deep dive into the budget and see if there are areas where there are redundancies or things we can be cutting that aren't related specifically to the education side of the school budget. I don't know that I have specific examples of that. I think if there were specific examples, we would already be doing it. So I think it really, one of the reasons why I'm running is just to have extra sets of eyes looking at this budget, new sets of eyes, and bringing different ideas to the table.
David?
So I think we can start with what the three main responsibilities of a school committee are. So school committees have the statutory authority over the budget for the school district. That means that they develop and manage the budget throughout the year. The voters actually are the final approval on what the budget will be at the town meeting. The second area of concern for school committees is the management of the superintendent. The 5 committee members are the boss of the superintendent. They are responsible for giving him feedback on his job, trying to guide him for what we see the vision of the school district to be. And the third area that school committees are primarily responsible for is policy. So you develop and set the policy, review it periodically, and that leads into the student handbook and employee handbooks. If you could refresh my memory, what was the question again? I think I might have missed one part.
Anything, cost-effective.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So
I'm having a tough
cost-effective
time
strategies
tonight.
for
Strategies, thank you.
for controlling the school budget. There really have to be some innovative ideas to try and bring costs down when you have a bare bones budget. We don't have any redundancies. I've been on the budget committee for 3 years and have been involved with the development and management of the budgets. We don't have fat to trim. We really are asking for those increases because that is what we must provide for our kids and our teachers. So I have gotten into the details of the budget, and we talk about it regularly. We have quarterly meetings, we have subcommittee meetings where we're discussing these things, and we have our budget hearing meetings where they're open to the public, and unfortunately, the crowd size is not that great. I hope everybody's watching at home on the video, just like today. I hope everybody's watching at home. So it really would be difficult. Some of the things that we're doing to try and contain those costs are to keep more of our special education students in district. It seems like you're paying a little bit more for
Thank
it
you,
now.
David.
Yep.
Perry?
First off, I don't think that you can accomplish everything within that question without a change to the budget. Mathematically, overcrowding is what it is. There's only so many spaces in the school for a student. There's only so many rooms in the school. So our class sizes without a new school are what they are right now. We hope that we can get a new school at some point and solve that, but I think that the best option is to hope that our teachers and, hiring the great teachers we have, retaining some of the teachers, our retention rate, and teaching as a whole rather than focusing on shuffling these kids from room to room or building to building. That's where I hope that we could do it without too much of an increase. I hope that we are accomplishing that daily. But for now, I don't think that we can accomplish everything on that list in that question without a change.
Thank you. This one's just for David. I watched the school committee meeting on the budget. I watched you and the school committee overrule the school superintendent, increase the budget that he recommended. Why would you pay your superintendent so much money to take his advice and then overrule him?
So the budget subcommittee consists of 2 people. So we can meet regularly and discuss the budget. We can talk with the superintendent about what we believe should be in the budget. But we cannot discuss topics that are germane to the school committee with a quorum outside of a public meeting. So that is the venue for making that kind of change and providing that feedback for the budget. You can't do it in a phone call with enough of the school committee members to actually vote on it. So that change did require that we take a vote, that we voted to approve it. And the reason that we did make that particular change is that we would be reducing the specials for our kindergartners, and we did not want to do that. We want to keep art and gym and music as a part of our curriculum. If we do have to make some of those difficult decisions where the budget has to be cut because we lose some federal funding, that is one of the areas where we may be able to get some of that money back. So we were keeping the money there to try and provide the well-rounded education for the students now, but in a crunch time, if we ever do have to make those difficult decisions, that's one place where we may have to make it.
Okay, thank you. This one is for all of you. What measures will you take to address teacher burnout and staff retention? We'll start with Perry.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know what is making our teachers move so often. I think that would be a great thing to look into, is why are the teachers moving districts so often? Is it our pay? Is it the student population? Is it the administration not being supportive? I think that would be the first step, is finding out what is causing the high turnover rate that we have. What was the other one? Sorry.
That was it.
Oh, there you go.
Staff. It was burnout and staff retention. Yep.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now we're going to ask David.
So teacher burnout and staff retention is something I was concerned about when I got on the school committee. I was worried about teachers that worked with my son leaving the district after just 1 year of working with them. We can show our teachers that we support them. Listen to them when they give us feedback. It helps to regularly meet with teachers in your parent-teacher conferences. Ask them how it's going. As a school committee member, we also want to seek that feedback in our public meetings. I am also involved with the Special Education Parents Advisory Council. That's another way to get feedback from teachers, from parents who are concerned about the needs of their students, their children that are not being met. We really need to work on providing a safe and a safe environment for the teachers here and the students, and to show them that we actually do listen to them, to make adjustments to our policy based on feedback we're hearing from them, to focus our budget on areas that they're telling us we need to work on. So it is something that I've been concerned with and have been focusing on for 3 years.
JP?
Yeah, I would say, the first thing going third is kind of tough because everybody says everything first. But the first thing I would say is, I think talking to the teachers, getting regular feedback is obviously important. And then just I know I'm not a teacher, but I work a job. And I would say I know that we have staff shortages around aides and subs. So I know if I was working a job and I didn't have the help that I thought I needed, or if I knew I needed to take a day off, there might not be a sub to cover that. That would increase my likelihood of being burnt out just from a normal human being point of view. So that's also something that I would like to look into, is the IA positions and the long-term subs and the subs, are we funding those at the right levels? Do we have the right precautions in place for when a teacher needs to take extended medical leave, or just needs a Friday off? Those are the things that I would want to look at.
Okay. And this is the last question. You guys have almost made it. How do you plan to support competitive salaries and professional development for our educators? And we'll start with David.
So there are some things that I can't say because we're in the middle of contract negotiations now. So I just came from the meeting with the WBEA where we were discussing the new contract. So some of the ideas that you can do are to clean up language in the contract which is a little bit outdated. You can try and trade off things which are relatively expensive to the district but don't directly correlate to the paycheck of the teacher. So everybody's looking for a bigger paycheck in their job. And that's really the primary concern for most people when they're looking for a new contract or a review with their boss. So I have to avoid talking about some subjects because of the open negotiations right now. Can you just repeat the question for me one more time?
How do you plan to support competitive salaries and professional development for your educators?
So the salaries on the low end of our salary scale are actually pretty competitive. So teachers who have less experience in our district have salaries that are pretty competitive with surrounding districts. Our upper range of the salary grid, the teachers who have been here longer, are actually in need of a little bit of an increase. So they've been at that step for quite a while. They're asking for more raises there. It really has to be done through the contract negotiations. You cannot change their pay outside of their contract.
Okay, thank you. JP?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I have the same understanding that Dave just went through. Is I think the contract negotiation time is the time that we address those issues. So if I were elected to the school committee, I think that's definitely a subcommittee that I would want to be involved in. As far as the professional development stuff goes, I think I'm a big proponent of that. If our teachers are continuing their education and learning new skills, I do think that we should do everything we can to reward them. As the world changes, we need new skills in teaching and learning. So if the teachers are willing to make the efforts to stay up to date on things like that, that's definitely stuff that I would want to see, in their contract to make sure that we're rewarding teachers who are, advancing their own development and their own teaching styles.
Perry?
Similar to what JP and Dave said, professional development is important, and the more education our teachers have, the more education they're able to provide. So you'd want to make sure that they are compensated for that as best they can be. But outside of negotiations, contract negotiations, there's little that can be done. So you hope that they're done reasonably and that everybody's getting what they deserve.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to the closing. Each one will have 2 minutes. We're going to do the same order that they drew in the beginning. I'm going to read their names off as they are on the ballot so that you guys can be familiar with it. First, we have David Allen Schmier.
So I'd like to ask for your vote for the school committee. I've been here for 3 years, and I have been working on trying to bring down our budget increases and to try to retain our staff and provide a safe and welcoming environment for all of our students. I really would like more participation from people in our town government. I really want to say thank you to JP and Perry for running. I think this is very healthy to have this discussion where we can compare ideas. I really wish we had more people participating. We have a couple of unfilled seats, and I wish we didn't. So thank you to my competitors, and thank you for your vote. I hope to see you at the ballot.
And we have John P. Waller.
I got the P that time, all right.
Yeah, that's how it is on the ballot.
I know, I remember going in and asking you if we could change it to JP, but I get it. So I would say there are 2 things that I did want to cover during the question phase that didn't really come up or make sense, so I'll bring them up in my closing here. One of the things that does concern me is Dave mentioned, the original budget increase was going to be 3% this year, but due to kids moving to different schools, we had to increase it. So one of the things that I think from a policy point of view I would like to see looked at by the committee if I'm elected is just some of the curriculum stuff. I know that now that the MCAS is no longer needed for graduation, I want to make sure that we're focusing a little more on career and college readiness. Maybe some of these kids are leaving for different schools because we don't have programs that are going to relate to them when they get out in the workforce. And those are the kind of things that I think we should be looking at as we adapt. The other thing to me that I think would actually kind of help with the teacher burnout, and I wish I thought of it during that question, was class leveling. I know my oldest is in 6th grade, and they still don't do any sort of class leveling yet. And what I mean by class leveling is When I was growing up, you had like an honors class and then an intermediate class and then, a lower class. I think that if a teacher is having to teach to the style of all the kids in the classroom, to me, once again, I'm not a teacher, I think that's going to be a harder job. So I think if we were doing a little bit of class leveling, I think it would be good for the students and the teachers. I think the students would have a chance to learn with kids who are in their skill level academic-wise at both the top end of the spectrum and the bottom end. So that's another policy that I would bring to the table if I were elected.
Thank you. And then we have Peregrine and Weech.
I really, like Dave said, appreciate that we can do this, that we can discuss this. I think that the most important thing that we can all make sure we're doing is voting based on what we think we need in the schools. And I think a lot of what the school committee is doing is wonderful. And I think that there's so much good happening that the tiny complaints that we're getting, the people who are complaining about the little things, they're the ones you hear. So I think it, first off, goes without saying that there's so much going right. But obviously the budget needs to be controlled, and there's only so much you can do with inflation the way it is and a population increase. But I'd really like to focus on that. And I have 5 children across a huge range of academic needs. I don't want to divulge too much about my kids' privacy, but there's a lot of needs across the 5 children. And I'm very aware that there's a large subset of the population that is falling behind sometimes. Depending on the grade, as they get older, it becomes harder and harder to teach to the entirety of the population when the teachers are being given so many different requirements and tasks to take on. I want to make sure that we're doing that right. I want it to be one of the things we don't hear about.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and putting yourself out there. And thanks for everybody who made it out on this wonderful rainy night, and those at home that are watching from home. And I hope that the polls are filled on April 12th. Remember, it's open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Have a good night, everyone.